This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello there. 31st of October 2025. It's Phin Adams here, and you're listening to Teachers Talk Radio. If you're listening live, very welcome. If you're listening again, also very welcome. Are you on half term? I am. Do you feel the reset? We're talking it out. All here.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
And talking it out, we are indeed. I really made use of it last show, didn't I? I'm a bit better now. Feeling a bit better. We'll talk about that. Of course, half term does us good. Has it done you good? We're going to be talking that today. The fall of the season we are now in. Is it winter? Well, it's autumn officially, isn't it? But the end of the British summertime often signals a sort of darkness, doesn't it? It is dark. It's pitch black. I was away actually over half term, flew back, and it was pitch black at 5:30. Heathrow Airport, pitch black. How do you cope with that? How do you cope with that in the classroom and outside of the classroom? Now, as you know, in this hour, it is a real space to talk about mental health. I am massively passionate about mental health in the classroom, both of students, teachers, and everyone around us, and how to take care of that. I was overwhelmed by the response to my last show because I really wasn't okay. And that was 2 weeks ago today. I came out of just a really horrific day in education. Didn't go into details. It wouldn't be my place to. Well, it would be my place to, but it's not the platform to, is it? This is all about teachers talking it out. And what you witnessed, I think, was just a very raw energy. And that really helped me process. So I think there's something in that as well, that actually mental health needs to be understood as a whole host of things, and it's not always an ideal. We aspire to the ideal. We aspire to feel good in the classroom and come out, but actually the harsh reality of being a teacher is it can be very stressful at times, and you can really go into a dip. Of course, you come out of that dip. You do. I did. And maybe one of the things you do to come out of a dip is you settle into being on half term. How do you find that? How do you find half term? That's what we're talking about today. Do you find half term does you good? It's done me good. Does it do you good? Because that's the other thing. I know a load of teachers that use it to plan, use it to mark. I met someone yesterday, actually, and before he met me, he'd done 3 hours of marking. And actually, I'd taken some marking home. I've not touched it, but I have taken it home. So it's always like a spectre, isn't it? It's just like a thing in the background. Oh, I could be working. Is it? Is that the case for you? Or do you use half term, as I actually have this time around, to genuinely reset? There's a massive movement in schools at the moment to make half term, the October one, a 2-week half term. And actually our school did just that. I work in a school in London. And our school did that for the first year. And it really has done me good. 2 weeks is double than just the standard one. I mean, that's... Yeah, I don't need to even voice that, do I? Does it do you good, though? Or do you still get the cold sweats, the terrors, when you realise you've got to go back into the classroom on Monday? And when it's dark and when it's cold, and I referenced at the start of the show how it's the end of British summertime, how do you feel this time of year? Is this a half term that you really, really need, and you really need to rest? And then in the other half terms, you can do other things? Or do you find yourself just churning out something, a bit of planning? Because I don't know what's healthy. I think what's worked for me is having a genuine reset, because my last show, well, in terms of the spectrum of human emotion, I was in a bit of a dip. I was really stressed around a whole pile of rubbish that had happened. And it took me a few days after that show to really come down from that and then properly reset. And that's when you fully, maybe I've not fully let go of it, but I've processed it. So maybe that is what half term allows you to do. Maybe it's allowed me to do it this time. So that was my opening reflection. You are, of course, listening to The Twilight Show with Phin Adams. You are very welcome. If you're listening live, feel free to message in the Podbean app. If you're listening again, you can still send a message, but I'll pick it up next time I do the show. And it is just coming up to 6:06, Halloween, trick or treat, unlucky for some. How does your school approach Halloween, actually? It's not going to be the main subject of today's show. We're talking mental health, and we're talking strategies that might help in the classroom. And hopefully you're getting a very real broadcast around a teacher in a London school and how that person copes. And also I'll invite you to message in and call in and whatever you would like to do. How do you cope? And if you're not a teacher, if you're someone who's just found this, please feel free as well. I can give you a very real picture of what it is like to be a teacher. Of course, it's an individual experience. What I say isn't the hard and fast rule for everyone in a British school. But having been in schools for a decade, at least I've got something of a grasp of what it's like to work in school. But anyway, we're talking Halloween. How does your school approach Halloween? I think if you're working in a religious school, there tends to be a bit of caution, doesn't there? And what I mean by religious school is I suppose there are specifically religious schools, but schools with a specific ethos, like a Christian ethos, Church of England ethos, or Roman Catholic ethos, etc., etc. If you're working in one of those, then actually there is a bit of caution, or perhaps a bit more caution, at least I've found my experience, towards Halloween than in other schools. How does your school approach it? Most of the time you're on half term anyway, aren't you? But if you're not, what does your school do? I know growing up, it was affiliated to a Church of England, and their approach to Halloween was just ignore it. It's harvest. So you'd look at harvest, you'd do the harvest festival, you'd sing all the hymns, but you actually wouldn't then have Halloween. But it's a massive part of British culture and sort of difficult not to reference. Or is it? I mean, yeah, it's an interesting topic, but I guess not really what this show's about. This show is about mental health. It's the mental health hour and how to make space for that in the classroom, outside the classroom. What do you do when things go wrong? What do you do to take care of your mental health? That's what we're talking. And we have 3 pretty regular features. I scrapped most of the features last time, didn't I? I just sort of talked for an hour. And oddly got the best response to that show than I ever have. But the 3 regular features, the furniture features, if you like, are Mind Gym, Dodeca Decompress, sounds better than it actually is, you might argue, and Food for Thought. So Mind Gym, well, that's just all the different things you can do with your mind to keep it healthy. It's like exercises and things. Dodeca Decompress, 12-minute meditation, just over 12 minutes. I'm trained to teach mindfulness in schools. I'm not an expert psychologist, but I do teach psychology, so I do have something to say around that. And what we do know is the studies that have been done show time and time again that 12 minutes or more of mindfulness every day can have a massive impact on your mental health. And they've done it in school settings. They've done studies outside of schools. Again, some of those studies can be disputed, and I'm not promulgating any of those studies really, other than to say that's what the studies seem to suggest. So we do 12 minutes of meditation. It's a term I've used, Dodeca Decompress, dodeca meaning 12. I'm going to get it in the Oxford English Dictionary before I die. But that's what we do. And maybe by doing it, it just helps you decompress from whatever week you've had. If you've had the 2-week half term, if you've only had the 1-week half term, it goes quickly, doesn't it? Maybe that helps. And maybe you pick up bits and pieces from the breathing exercise. Maybe you'll find it useful and you can use it in the classroom or not. Go and grab a cup of tea while I'm doing it. I got my cup of tea. Got my gloves on as well, actually, today. Yeah, it's cold. When do you actually turn on the heating? I've turned it on in my flat as of yesterday. Yeah, I thought I'm going to be indoors most of today, so I'm going to put the heating on. I don't want to be sitting in a cold shed to do the broadcast, etc., etc. And then we got food for thought. So that's all coming up. Food for thought, a couple of passages that might help you in the classroom, might help you reflect on things, or might not. So a couple of bits and pieces to talk about on today's show. That's all to come. Let's hear from our sponsors then here on Teachers Talk Radio.
This show is brought to you in partnership with Hachette Learning, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit hachetlearning.com to explore the full range of titles.
Teachers, have you heard of Bet UK 2026? It's the world's biggest education and technology event, and it's completely free for educators. From keynote speakers and panel sessions to CPD accredited workshops and networking, Bet UK 2026 is where educators from across the globe come together to share ideas, spark inspiration, and find solutions that fuel our mission to drive better education globally. Get your free ticket today at betshow.com.
At AQA, we work with the UK's largest teacher network to shape the future of assessment. With teachers for students, we ask questions today that matter tomorrow.
Brilliant stuff. We're back. Although, never went away. You're listening to Teachers Talk Radio. I'm actually going to get a ticket for that. I didn't actually, I'd not heard of that. Massive conference happening. But we'll talk more about that later on in today's show. What have we got for you then? Mind Gym. Let's start with that. So, I do bits and pieces, know a little bit about psychology, and know a little bit about what it means to take care of your mental health and how to keep yourself healthy. So what about this? Have you heard of transactional analysis? It's used in different settings, used in psychotherapy, used in education, used in organizations, and it consists of a variety of principles. And I thought, do you know what? I rediscovered it the other day. I learned a little bit about it while I was at university and read the father of transactional analysis's book. Byrne is the surname. That's the psychologist or psychiatrist originally that came up with it. The idea being we have 3 ego states within us: child, parent, adult. You've heard that before, right? Or if you haven't, it's essentially that's what it is. So a child, we have an inner child. We have a child that is free. And that's where our spontaneity, our creativity, all these things come. We have a parent, which has the sort of internalized rules and the shoulds that we have within us. And we have an adult, which is supposed to be this mediator. And you might see some of that coming out in the classroom. And I want to talk more with you about that perhaps at a later date, because I'm not fully au fait with all of that around how you can use transactional analysis in the classroom. I'm sure there's podcasts about that. And I want to read up on it before I actually talk about that bit. But what I do want to talk about is how it might help solve some of the stress that happens in the classroom. So not specifically about your interactions, improving your interactions with pupils, because apparently it can be used for that as well. It's supposed to be really helpful for communication, but actually helpful for stress. So I thought I'll put that in Mind Gym this week. Because if you think about a really stressful situation, a triggering event, let's call it, a lot of the time that can actually be analysed and understood from a transactional analysis perspective. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to put my really rubbish situation that happened 2 weeks ago into a kind of transactional analysis framework. And it helped me process it. And I thought, do you know what? The next show, I'm going to share it with you. So here's what I did. I essentially thought about the situation, the stressful event. And let's just call it as generic as that, because it could be anything, right, that stresses you out in the classroom or admin-wise at school. Schools can be stressful, right? That can be a given. And you think about it from a TA lens. So quite often, what TA suggests is when you feel stress, your ego states, probably parent, probably child, are not in balance. And actually one is either dominating or there is a specific energy that means your adult is actually offline. Stay with me. That's why it's mind gym, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint, this. We've not got the full hour of this, don't worry. Stay with me though. Child, parent, adult. So you take a stressful situation that's happened in the classroom or outside of it. And you analyze it by thinking about what's the child doing there? Is the child doing something? So you're really stressed about something. So for me, I felt as if I was put in a situation and then blamed for something, right? That's as far as I'll go with the specifics. So I was blamed for something. Now, what TA gave me was the ability to then see that and see the inner child, the child being that adapted child that has taken on shame, as if the parent, the critical parent, has shamed the child. And that actually allowed me to unpack quite a few emotions that I was holding together. One being anger, one being rebellion, wanting to rebel and push back and shout and say, how dare you blame me for that? Another being fear and shame. So those emotions are emotions you're supposed to have experienced growing up. We all experience unusual relational dynamics. And those of us who've been through trauma, I think TA would have something to say on that. Thinking about it, though, from just a stressful event. If you're experiencing shame, that's the adapted child and anger connected to that. The parent, well, that can often be the critical parent. You should do that. You should be perfect. You should have done this. I thought, actually, there's something in that. Because there was a bit of time where actually my adult was offline. It was online when I was doing Teachers Talk Radio 2 weeks ago. But both after and before, it was offline at different points because the teacher, well, I want to say teacher, there's a Freudian slip for you. That's a whole separate section of psychology. The parent, and the child were in a sort of feedback loop. One talking with the other. The critical parent, internalized voice being, you should have done that. You should have taken more control there. The child feeling an awful amount of shame, but also anger and rebelling back. And that's supposed to be the adapted child. Now, all of these ego states, both the adult, the parent, and the child, are within us. And the ideal is the adult mediates between the two and is in use, or the driving seat, driving the bus a lot of the time. In the situation where you feel that intensity of shame that I did, then I had parent and child kicking off. The adult not driving the bus. And that's where it felt out of control. And do you know what? That framework is incredibly powerful. So it helped me. And I thought, I'm going to put it in Mind Gym. I'm going to put it in Mind Gym and just use it as an exercise. So next time you're in a stressful situation, just imagine, you might want to do a bit of reading. And maybe I've not explained it perfectly. Apologies if that's the case. But put those transactions that take place in child, parent, adult framework. There's a whole other section of TA that we'll talk about perhaps at a later date as another part of Mind Gym. For me, it's unlocked a lot. And I want to explore it more, and I want to do a bit more reading about it before I talk more about it, because I don't want to be giving sort of information that actually isn't correct. But that's the tenets of it. The philosophy of TA, it's sort of 3 principles as well. I like the sort of 3 being the magic number. There's something I think in Greek literature that says 3 is meant to be particularly persuasive. And I think TA, there's a reason for why it's a sort of triangle, and triangles make a lot of sense, isn't there? It sort of fits the human psyche. I could talk for hours about psychology, but this is purely about what you could do in the classroom and how it helped me just as a teacher, talking it out, applying the TA framework. But the TA framework then, child, parent, adult, that has a broader kind of framing, which is 3 philosophical principles. One being, I'm okay, you're okay. And we'll perhaps talk about that at a later date. I don't want to bore you with all of that when I don't know a huge amount more about it, but I'm okay, you're okay. The second principle being, we can all think and problem solve. That's quite empowering, isn't it? It's quite empowering. We can all think and problem solve. Next time you're in a stressful situation, just try reminding yourself of that. And then the third one, we choose our own destiny. We write our own scripts. We have the possibility of change. Now, quite often, there is a lot of doom and gloom, both in a mental health setting, but also in a teaching setting. Even though we bang on about at schools growth mindset, actually, do we practice growth mindset? Well, I don't know if we always do. There's a lot of whinging, isn't there? Tell me about it. I spent a whole hour, didn't I, talking with you around this stressful event. I suppose I wasn't just whinging. I hope you thought it was an interesting listen or got something from it. If you didn't, I can only apologize. Hopefully you'll get something from this broadcast. If not, there's loads of other teachers talking on Teachers Talk Radio later this weekend. But it is quite an interesting one, isn't it? How actually reminding yourself of a gentle encouragement, which is we all have the capacity to change, and maybe taking that stressful situation that I was in, perhaps next time I'll do something differently. Do you know what I think I will? So that's how it's helped me. And there's loads of uses. I'm going to do more reading on it. I'll come back in a couple of weeks maybe and talk more about TA and how it could be used in the classroom. Because that's the thing, isn't it? As a teacher, we go off our experience, we go off the literature. Both those things important. I'm pretty sure I came across it when I trained about, it was 10 years ago. Transaction analysis and how to use it in a school setting. I don't fully understand how to use it in a classroom because the child is automatically the child, no? And then the parent is kind of, you're a teacher, so you're in loco parentis, right? Which is the parental figure. Is that the case? Or are you meant to always come out of it and be an adult? But are you ever talking adult to adult? Maybe TA works in a sixth form setting. Anyway, I'll have to do more reading on that. We'll talk about it on Mind Gym at a later date. But that's essentially that aspect of Mind Gym. See if it works for you. If it fits my kind of philosophy. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to try using it to explain these things. And I think as well, it is quite subjective. There's a bit of subjectivity to it in that one person's perspective on TA might be very different. And that's possibly where you can use AI to help as well. You can sort of say, I think my child was doing this and the adult was doing this and the parent was doing that. Does this make sense? And AI is quite good at being like a critical friend and sort of analyzing it from a very reasonable perspective. With some caveats, of course, because sometimes it can get it wrong. When I first put it in the search engine, because I do lots of stuff using AI in education, and there's loads of podcasts about how it's evolving and things and how I genuinely think it will transform teaching in a few years. We're sort of not quite at the crest of the wave yet. It's not quite there yet. But anyway, because I use it for different bits and pieces, it came up as when I said, can I understand it from a TA perspective? It came up as a teaching assistant perspective. So it said, yeah, I can help you understand it from a teacher's assistant perspective. And I just thought, no, write it out in full. But anyway, AI can sometimes be helpful. So there it is. There's Mind Gym. Coming up, we've got Dodeca Decompress. That's 12 minutes of mindfulness. I'm trained to teach mindfulness in schools, so hopefully that's going to be helpful. If it's not, grab yourself a cup of tea, keep us on in the background, and food for thought. That's all to come here on Teachers Talk Radio. We'll talk about a number of other things as well, including what is coming up in November. We've had, of course, Black History Month when you return to school. It will be heading towards remembrance. How does your school approach it? We'll talk more about that after the news here on Teachers Talk Radio.
This show is brought to you in partnership with Hachette Learning, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit hachetlearning.com to explore the full range of titles.
Teachers, have you heard of Bet UK 2026? It's the world's biggest education and technology event, and it's completely free for educators. From keynote speakers and panel sessions to CPD accredited workshops and networking, Bet UK 2026 is where educators from across the globe come together to share ideas, spark inspiration, and find solutions that fuel our mission to drive better education globally. Get your free ticket today at betshow.com.
At AQA, we work with the UK's largest teacher network to shape the future of assessment. With teachers for students, we ask questions today that matter tomorrow.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Schools Week focuses on the issue of falling roles, which it says could plunge maintained primary schools in the most affected areas into deficit. The article cites research by the National Foundation for Educational Research, which says pupil numbers have fallen in every region since 2018. Schools have made redundancies in the worst hit areas in order to keep their financial heads above water. The findings have prompted calls for ministers to hand primaries more cash to help them weather the storm. Unions have urged the government to continue to invest and support local authorities to maintain staffing and resources. The research shows that many primary school numbers have declined in every region of the country since 2018, with London worst affected. The east of England registered the smallest fall. Class sizes are being reduced in response. In the 10 London boroughs most affected, classes have dropped by 11.5%. Across England, full-time classroom teachers have been reduced by 2.3% over the same period, but this figure rises as high as 18.8% in hardest hit areas. With pupil numbers also set to drop in secondaries, unions say ministers need to give thought now to creating a funding model which improves the sustainability of the whole system. BBC News covers the announcement from government that it is delaying reforms to the SEND system, as well as other policy proposals, until next year. It originally planned to publish its school's white paper this autumn, but Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson said there would be a further period of co-creation, testing our proposals with the people who matter most in this reform. Charities and SEND sector experts have criticised the delay, describing it as deeply frustrating for parents, but adding that government decisions needed to be right. Ministers have faced calls not to cut education, health and care plans, and last month the Education Select Committee recommended that government keep them. More comment can be found online. BBC Europe reports that a growing number of young people are choosing to study in Eastern Europe when pursuing a career in medicine. Getting into medical school in the UK generally requires a minimum of 3 A's at A-level and high grades in other subjects. Those who struggle to get all of the high grades necessary are now looking elsewhere to fulfil their dreams. In England, around 8,126 medical students started this academic year, sharply up from 2 years ago when it was just 7,010, but still far short of the 15,000 the government says it needs. Medical University of Plovdiv in Bulgaria is proving to be a popular alternative. As one of Bulgaria's most prestigious medical schools, it attracts many more applicants than it admits. Although it says qualifications are important, its key admission process involves an entrance exam. Classes for international students are held in English, and agencies are also on hand to support new arrivals with accommodation, travel, shopping, and basics like Wi-Fi. Medical courses in Bulgaria last 6 years, 1 year longer than in the UK. And at the end they have a degree recognised by the GMC, which allows them to practice in the NHS. Further details can be found online. Finally, in the Channel Islands, Jersey's Education Minister has said there are no plans to recruit more Gerrier teachers. Deputy Rob Ward said the budget for the teaching of the language, which is currently £647,500, is not to be ring-fenced. There are an estimated 200 speakers of the traditional Norman French language on Jersey. Responding to a written question from Deputy Helen Miles, Ward said the government's focus was on offering a curriculum which helps students develop their language skills. He said that whilst teaching in school is the largest element of language education on Jersey, the Education Department also runs activities to promote the language in other areas. He said it's celebrated at an annual Eisteddfod, that the Gerrier office runs morning cafe conversation groups, and that it's also spoken at key events across the island. This has been Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
You're listening to Teachers Talk Radio, of course. Thank you to Jo for the news. And she talked, as well as in the sponsors bit, around Bet UK. Now, just make sure when you book your ticket, you type BETT UK 2026. I said I'd talk a little bit more about it. We'll, of course, be there. That's right. It's the world's biggest celebration of education. And as you heard in the news, it's happening in 2026, where you can join 35,000 trailblazers from across the globe, visionary educators and ed tech pioneers to policy powerhouses. And it's 3,000 bright young minds there as well. So world-class speakers. It looks pretty good, actually. I'm just looking at the website now. So just type in BETT 2026. The website is uk.bettshow.com. So uk.betshow.com. They should probably, I don't know, I'm no expert on branding, but yes, the spelling BETT is what you want. And that's the educational conference that I said I'd talk about. Yes, happening in January. So I will hopefully be along there, and Teachers Talk Radio are also going to be there, and I'll be with them, I hope. Although I need to make sure that it fits with my current teaching schedule. If you're a full-time teacher, actually, how does it work for you? Feel free to message, by the way. I can see there's loads of us joining in the online studio. So very welcome to Tom. Good to see you again. Aquaflide. We've also got TriCab. These just sort of, feel free to message. TriCab. I've not seen you in the chat before. Fact Porcupine Podcast has messaged with a couple of emojis. Really nice to have your company. Feel free to send in any messages you like, or even call in if you'd like. Feel free to send a message first with what you'd like to talk about. We are talking a number of things today. If you are teaching in a British school, in England and in Wales, and not sure about Scotland, but certainly England and Wales, it's half term, isn't it? Or we are around half term. It's that sort of time, Halloween and everything in between. How have you used your half term? That's what we're thinking about today. Has it been a genuine reset, as it has been for me? Are you still resetting? Are you still somehow on the treadmill of work? All these things welcome in today's show. We're going to start our Dodeca Decompress in just a second. 12 minutes of live mindfulness. There's something powerful about doing this live with me. I find it that way. I think the studies suggest it as well. Doing it in a group can really help. We are social beings after all. Of course, if you're listening again, you can still use the techniques, and hopefully it's useful. As I say, I'm trained to teach it in schools, so hopefully you'll get something from it. And if not, don't worry, it's only 12 minutes of the show. Food for thought as well coming up here on Teachers Talk Radio. So let's start Dodeca Decompress. So do find a comfortable position if you're lying down or sitting or wherever works for you. And we'll just count down with breaths from 10 to get us into being alive here, right now, 6:34 on a Friday evening. Let's go then. From 10. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Where are you right now? What are you experiencing? What emotion, if you could go straight to emotion and just notice where it is, where would it take you? Right in your body, that felt sense. And just breathing into that felt sense, wherever it is in your body, right here, right now. And staying with that sensation. Not feeling anything is a sensation in itself. What sounds can you hear around you? Anything outside, anything inside? Just notice those sounds. And just staying with the breath. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Just noticing those sensations again. For this mindfulness exercise, we're going to do a body scan from the bottom of our feet all the way to the top of our head. And let's start just centering yourself with the breath, following that breath now in through the nose. So it goes down, right into the belly, perhaps stays there, and then back up through and out through the mouth. And do one more of those. In through the nose, right the way down, wherever it reaches, wherever you feel the breath resting. Perhaps it means you slow down your breath. Perhaps it means you just breathe, just focusing on the breath. Doesn't matter how you're breathing. Just focusing there. In through the nose, down and resting and pausing between that out breath. And then out through the mouth. And when you're ready, just focus your attention now with your eyes open or closed, whatever works, on your right toe. What sensations can you feel right here, right now, in your right toe? And just now move to your other toes. Imagine that you've got an invisible line that you're drawing around the perimeter of your toes, your foot. Now the big toe, from the big toe down into your other toes. And just drawing that line. Right the way down to your little toe. Round to your ankle. And just noticing the contact of your feet to the floor or the air, however you're sitting, however you're standing or lying down. Just noticing that. Now go to the left toe, big toe that is. And just do the same thing. All the sensations in your big toe, and then drawing an invisible line from your big toe down right the way along the perimeter of all your other toes till you reach your little toe. That line, that invisible line going round to your ankle. And now imagine that you've got a spotlight. That spotlight is now on both your ankles, shining brightly. And that now spotlight is moving up to your shins, slowly to your knees, and now focusing on your left knee. Noticing whatever sensations are there. Maybe breathing into that sensation if you're feeling any discomfort, or if you're not feeling anything, just noticing. That's a feeling of itself. Maybe you've gone away. Maybe you've gone to thoughts about the future, about the past. Just celebrate that you've noticed that. And bring yourself back to spotlight on your left knee. Breathing into that knee right now. In through the nose, right the way down. To your knee, and then right the way back up. And out the top of your head, your mouth. And noticing where you're sitting, body on chair, or on floor, or on bed. Just noticing the contact of your body with the chair, or wherever you are. And now, focusing your attention, the spotlight of your attention on your lower back. And perhaps imagine your spinal cord as a thread being held upright if that feels comfortable. Your attention, though, staying on your lower back. Spotlight there. And now breathing into that, towards the spotlight, in through the nose again, right the way down your spine and to your lower back. Just noticing it resting there. And then back up through the spine and out. And one more breath, going in through the nose, right the way down. And back up. And out through the mouth. And now going up the spine. Right the way up to your neck. Still being held up by that thread. Breathing out. And when you're ready, bring yourself back. Although we never went away. Welcome, you're listening to Teachers Talk Radio. We've just done the dodeca decompress. And how do you feel? There's lots of things, isn't there, in that can come up. And hopefully things helped. And if they didn't, then perhaps try something else. Mindfulness doesn't work for everyone. Although the studies suggest that it can be really beneficial. It might not work for you. God, I feel a bit sleepy now. Maybe it was the chamomile tea. Do you drink tea during the day as a teacher? I'd like to know your experiences. If you do feel free to message. I find I can only drink green tea, or I do then become quite sedated. So I had a lemon balm tea while the news was on, actually, and then I did the dodeca decompress with you, and now we are where we are, 6:45. Let's try and hear from our sponsors. Back to the energy. Coming up, food for thought. But first, a word from our sponsors.
This show is brought to you in partnership with Hachette Learning, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Level up your professional development today and visit hachetlearning.com to explore the full range of titles.
Teachers, have you heard of Bet UK 2026? It's the world's biggest education and technology event, and it's completely free for educators. From keynote speakers and panel sessions to CPD accredited workshops and networking, Bet UK 2026 is where educators from across the globe come together to share ideas, spark inspiration, and find solutions that fuel our mission to drive better education globally. Get your free ticket today at betshow.com.
At AQA, we work with the UK's largest teacher network to shape the future of assessment. With teachers for students, we ask questions today that matter tomorrow.
Welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. You're listening to Phin Adams here, and it's the Twilight Show. We've been talking different bits and pieces, haven't we? Mental health in the classroom, and has half term really been a reset for you? It has for me. I feel all right. I feel good. Better than I did on the last show anyway. Of course, Remembrance is coming up, and that is something that is a marked moment in the British calendar, isn't it? How does your school approach it? We'll just talk very briefly on it because it segues nicely into food for thought. Remembrance, of course, remembering those that died in conflict, and some people wear poppies and others don't. And some people choose different acts of remembrance. How does your school do it? I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts, your experiences. My school has a remembrance service, marks it with various moments, minutes silence. How does your school do it? Feel free to let me know if you're listening live. Message on the Podbean app right here, right now. And that's what's coming up, isn't it? In the next month in terms of the British calendar that's possibly marked in most schools. Time for food for thought then. Two passages for you. One from Huinsung Jung's commentaries on allegories. An allegory, that's like a lens with which to view the world, isn't it? Is that right? Glad I'm not an English teacher. And then I've got something from the Humanistic Buddhism series. So this is not a religious show. It's not a non-religious show either. This is a mental health show. So Humanistic Buddhism, it's almost like, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I've just realized humanism is a non-religion, Buddhism being a religion. But then, of course, Buddhism doesn't always call itself a religion. Anyway, that's where the passage comes from. Take from it what you will, and let's reflect on it together. So this one is just a small little segment from Huisung Jung Shuo, commentaries on allegories, and it's called Beautiful Heart, Beautiful World. A beautiful world starts with ourselves. When we find ourselves complaining about being neglected in interpersonal relationships, we should change the situation by exuding warmth ourselves. When we feel helpless amidst a choice of chaotic society, we should start the changes ourselves by following the rules and maintain our innocence through self-discipline. When we sigh about the trends of utilitarianism demands, why not lead the changes by being compassionate, loving, equanimous, and selfless ourselves? Building a beautiful new world begins with each and everyone's hearts. How's that passage for you? What do you think of that? Now, I've not read that word, equanimous. Equanimous? Feel free. I'm very glad I'm not an English teacher. I have taught English as a foreign language, though, so I'm a little bit ashamed that word I've not seen for a long time. It's to do with being loving, though, isn't it? Interesting passage. You know, as well, it's weird how when I was planning this show, Food for Thought, this segment, I found this passage. I didn't spot that links really nicely to TA. And again, I could talk for hours on that. And even my stumbling over the word links to that critical parent. You should read everything well. That adapted child feeling a sense of shame. And then I had to bring the nurturing parent in the contrast, talking with you now, and just be sort of speaking and saying, well, it's okay. People make mistakes. You're human. You're human. And the adult then being, you're doing the show. You're doing an all right job. Nurturing parent and adult actually is quite mixed up for me. They talk in TA about a contaminated adult, and sometimes we get that. So sometimes watching that, the adult's meant to be the observer, right? And then the driving of the bus, perhaps listening to the parent and the adult, parent and the child at the same time. Anyway, that's the passage. What do you think of that? Feel free to message in. The other passage I was going to read is the Buddhist perspective. This is the humanist Buddhist perspective on fortune and longevity. Have a look at this. Have a listen to this. Does this help? And maybe this helps you in the classroom. Maybe it doesn't. Certainly, Beautiful Heart, Beautiful World. I can see that helping me in the classroom in terms of sometimes you can have a really rubbish day in school. Tell me about it. I really have, more recently than I'd like to remember. But sometimes changing your inner world is what can then change the outer. That's what I take from that passage. This one, though, we might take something else. This is on fortune and longevity. It's said, our present fortune is accumulated by our ancestors. Thus, they must be cherished. Our future fortunes will bless our children and grandchildren. Thus, they must be cultivated. Our present fortunes are like a lamp whose oil will be exhausted as we keep burning it. Our future fortunes will be the oil that is added to the lamp. The more we add, the brighter the lamp. We must learn to seize our present fortunes as well as causes and conditions while diligently cultivating them for the future. In this way, good fortune and happiness will always follow wherever we go, and we will always reap sweet and beautiful fruits. What do you think of that? There's food for thought. How could you use that in the classroom? It's all about staying in the present, isn't it? And fostering those good moments in the class. This is how I'm applying it. Again, feel free to say, no, that's definitely not what we can take from this passage. But when I was planning this show, I thought, I'm going to use that when I'm back in the classroom. Because there's so much in education where we're thinking about making references to past learning and making references and links in our concept maps to future learning. Well, that's all important. But sometimes we lose sight of the presence and the presence of being in that classroom, presenting. Surely that has to have the central focus, because it's by doing that we then cultivate the future learning and we build on the past learning. That's what I took from that. Staying in the presence, being a bit mindful in the classroom. There's books, isn't there, on mindfulness in the classroom. And as I say, I teach it, and it is an incredibly effective tool. But we as teachers sometimes forget to do it, don't we? We're so focused on what's next to cover. How can I link this here? And it's like a learned anxiety. I've talked about that before. It's a learned anxiety being a teacher, when actually we lose sight of that sort of spontaneous presence that can sometimes generate the best learning possible if we focus in on that. and therefore sow the seeds for that future learning. So that's how the passage links together. God, we come full circle here, full circle. And there we have it. So lots of different bits and pieces. And I hope you've got something from today's show. Slightly more balanced show, isn't it, this week? Because the last time, as I say, I was a bit out of kilter. But it was real, it was genuine. And who's to say you won't go through something similar, or I won't again? And do feel free to come and join the show on 6 o'clock on a Friday, Twilight Show, and we can talk it out. It's been an absolute pleasure keeping you company on this Friday evening. Do feel free to check out Teachers Talk out and about, either in the community, but also on the various podcast apps. There's loads of shows happening in the next week. I've seen the schedule. It looks action-packed as most teachers return from half term. Of course, we've got shows happening this weekend. Feel free to check that out. And do feel free to join me once again on the Twilight Show. I'll probably be having more stressful moments, because often do you find this when you return back into the classroom after a break, that transition, it takes a while to sort of reintegrate the mind. You feel a little bit out of kilter. Do you find that? You feel refreshed, but you come back into the classroom and you're sort of playing catch up. For the decade I've been in education, I've never not felt an aspect of that where I felt a little bit behind. And again, I think TA, transactional analysis, it's really unlocked a lot for me. And maybe it will unlock a lot for you. But I think it would have something to say on that, how you feel a little bit out of kilter. And it takes a couple of days to get back into sync, doesn't it? It's like, oh, here we go. Yep, this class, I got to do this, this, and this. This class, I got to do that. Or maybe it doesn't go that way for you. I find the seasonal change, what we're going through right now, at least in Britain, you know, the change of the season, the darker nights, that sometimes takes a while to catch up with. Getting more sleep is often key. And just trying to sort of maintain that present perspective. Those are probably the two things I found most helpful. But yeah, I still get in on Monday morning feeling a little bit out of kilter. But it's okay, because I wouldn't change it. Well, actually, I would change the job. But I do like being a teacher. And maybe I'm going off on a tangent here. Maybe that's a subject for another show. But actually, there is something to be said with that encouragement that was written for me on a Post-it note 10 years ago. Never forget why you chose this. And I sometimes use that when I'm having an off day. That sort of encouragement. What works for you? Going back on that Monday morning after a long break, a nice break, a gentle reset, or hard reset for some, hard reset for me. What does it feel like going back on a Monday morning? Now, I don't really believe that anyone loves Mondays, despite what I think one of those ads says. But how is it for you? That's perhaps going to be our topic for next week's show. I will see you next week at exactly the same time, 6 p.m. You've been listening to The Twilight Show with Phin Adams. We've had the Mind Gym. I've introduced you to TA, or maybe you've come across it before. It is used in education, but I don't know much about how it's used in education. That's maybe a topic for another show as well. We've had Mind Gym and we've had Dodeca Decompress. All there. So do enjoy what is left of half term, whatever it is you're doing. I'm off to do something tonight on TV. I will see you next time, though, 6 p.m. here on Teachers Talk Radio. Do check us out on socials. Do feel free to give Teachers Talk a follow. And then check out some of the other fantastic shows. Some of them probably a lot more useful than this one. I'll see you next time. Have a good evening.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.